Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. You may be seeing the replay. I wanted to introduce Dr. Hala Sabry. Hala and I met through Facebook. As you know, she is the founder of the Women Physician Moms Group, emergency room physician, has done so much with helping women physicians. If you saw the logo before, we talk about the day in February that we honor women physicians, Elizabeth Blackwell, and all the women physicians who have come since. You've done a lot of volunteer work. You've done a lot of corporate work. You've worked with Fortune 500 companies. You've done brand ambassadors, just Doximity, getting companies out there and building communities as well. What I see a lot in our group is there's a lot of struggle with marketing. We can produce the best product, right? But if we don't know how to market it, it's a problem. We don't know how to get it out there. I still struggle with this. Personally, I think marketing is all about testing, but there's some definitely tried and true methods without having to do paid ads that will work. So Hala had approached me, and I think, honestly, what I think is that it's wonderful that a woman physician who makes a fair amount of money going out and just doing this for other companies, paid, not free, is able to do that for us. So Hala, thank you. You don't have to do any of this and give up your time. So I appreciate this. You've done so much for women physicians. Thank you.
No, thank you. Is my mic okay for you guys? I just plugged it back in after being away for a while. Thank you so much for that really amazing introduction and almost giving me credit for things I didn't do. So thank you for doing that.
True. That's not true.
And Sharon, I want to say that I just want to say that I watch your group so often, and I just think that the amount of love and the values that you put into the group. Sometimes I'm messaging you like, girl, you should be charging for this. You should be doing this. And she's like, I just want to give it all away for free. And so I just think that your community building, your heart and your mind and everything like that, this group is so special to have you leading it. So I just want to say that you're amazing. And I think the world of you. So thank you for how this started, just let you guys know, is that there was a post I had seen. And I really try to be active in other people's Facebook groups because I think that's really important. And I had commented on the post, and it was about marketing. And I really can't remember the post now, but it was something to the effect of, how do you market, basically, right? And I messaged Sharon, and I was like, Sharon, do you have because I know Sharon has a whole business school, and I said, Sharon, do you have a whole topic on organic versus paid marketing, warm and cold leads? And we talked about it a little bit. And I said, I'd love to present, I don't have anything to sell you guys. I do advise companies, but my companies advise that criteria to do it is for transparency, as they have to make $1 million or more in revenue. And I come on not only for a salary, but also I own part of the company. So I grow their company, but I own part of it. So we grow together, right? And so the reason why I'm doing this, what Sharon said is a little bit not true at the end. I'm volunteering my time. I don't think that this is volunteering my time. My mission is to create more leaders, not followers. And the best way I could do that for business owners is teach them how to be more independent. And for me, that means a lot, especially for women-owned businesses. There's, if you guys know the statistics, it's very, very small of how many businesses women own and that are actually successful. And the layers of success, the numbers dwindle, when you get, to 6 figures, 7 figures. So for me, this is an investment in all of you. And my return on investment here is not only, all of us growing together, but also part of this, is me establishing my expertise in the field, right? This is why we do this, right? I'm coming here with all my expertise to establish myself as a thought leader, right? So I want you to think about, I'm going to show you ways I do this. I'm going to present to you just 3 topics. That's it. Three take-home points. Because I know if I do more, we're going to go into overwhelm. But I'm going to give examples of how I do this, because if you guys ever followed me, right, you guys can see exactly, I'm practicing what I preach, right? I'm telling you exactly the ingredients to success that not only I have created for myself, but also that I help really large companies do. Okay. Before that, I talked about my return on investment with you guys. Okay. But I want you to tell me, you're giving me an hour of your time. And I think an hour of your time is worth so much more than any fee that you guys could pay me. So I want you to say in the chat, what is the result? Like what's the one thing, just one thing that you want to take from this meeting? I need you guys to put it in the chat. So even if you have your camera off, I need you to take your fingers out and I need you to put it in the chat. And there's 2 reasons why I want to do this. And I will tell you the reasons, but I need to see a couple people in the chat. So we have about how many people on? I'm gonna wear my glasses now because I'm older and I need glasses. So 23. So let's get a couple people in the chat and I'll tell you why I'm holding you guys all accountable to this. Okay, strategies to build an online community. I won't say your names if you send it to me directly or not. Like I will. And if you guys have any personal questions for me, you can always message me. Okay, marketing as a life coach and a neurologist. Okay, strategies to grow my audience. Okay, we'll get a couple more people, and I'll tell you why this is so important. I want to learn how to market better so I can create a business that can nourish clients and potential clients. Good. Launching a new business, disaster planning for vulnerable people. I love that. Marketing strategies that feel authentic and true to me. I love, love, love that. That's so true. I spent a lot of time not being authentic to myself, and I'll tell you that was like the most wasted years. Okay. To think about marketing strategies to apply to publicizing my book. Congratulations on that. Starting a private practice. Potential how to market my hobby. Go ahead.
I have one, dealing with failure.
Dealing with failure. And you guys, I have done, one of the things I always say to all of my clients is that there's no such thing as failure. There's only success and experience, right? So I have gained a lot of experience. I'll just say that. Okay. There was one company actually that hired me and they were really on it. They were like, we need you, we need you, we need you. And I was like, why? Right. And I'll tell you why why I'm like a little bit, like I ask a lot of questions and they said, well, we need you because we don't want to make the same mistake as X company. It was a different company. And I said, it is impossible. You will not make those mistakes. There are so many more mistakes to make. Right. So you cannot go. Like, can you imagine getting in your car and driving somewhere and the whole time you're thinking, don't get an accident, don't get an accident, like you would probably get an accident. That's probably what would happen, right? Like you'd be like hyper, like reflexive and all this other stuff, right? So I will just say failure is welcome. Okay. Like we're going to fail forward or whatever it is, like all of the TED Talks say, right? But we're going to be prepared for failure. Okay. So the reason why I want you guys all, and if I haven't said your answer, that's not because I haven't read it. That's not because it's not important. I just want to make sure that I explain that you writing that is not just for me. It's for you. Okay. Oftentimes I see, especially women physicians, okay, not just women physicians, like successful women, because you guys know I'm a coach and I coach 6 and 7 figure earning women. Okay. And there's 2 things we do really freaking well. Okay. We are so smart. Okay. How many board exams have you guys taken? Probably enough, right? We have done hard things. We have taken hard tests. We know we can depend on our brain. Okay. And all of us probably make more than 6 figures, right? Make more than 100K. And if you guys are residents, you guys will. You guys already have like that confidence that you will in a little bit. And so we have a lot of money too. And what happens is when successful women, okay, and I don't just coach doctors, but this happens in doctor spaces, lawyer spaces, pharmacist spaces, everything, that when successful women start to become overwhelmed or confused, they rely on their strengths, which are those 2 things. They start to study a lot, right? How many of you guys have bought a course, right? Yeah. How many of you guys have actually completed all the courses that you've bought? I can't even raise my hand. Well, for those that can, I'm so proud of you guys. Okay. So proud of you. Right. So you'll buy courses, you'll listen to podcasts, you'll do all these things to consume. Okay. And so I think that's really important to know that that's a pattern that we do. Right. Or we try to buy our way out of things. Right. Sometimes courses are ways that we buy our way out of things. Like we buy the course and we're like, oh, I feel better already. I did something. right? Or you start to outsource. And I see a lot of business owners, especially in the beginning, waste a lot of money on buying ads, waste a lot of money on paying for Facebook ads people or marketing people. And I want to save you from yourself, because even though this is what got us to this point, is investing money into medical school, investing money into our businesses, studying our butts off, right? That's not going to get us to the next point, which is these really successful business owners. So what Sharon said earlier was really, really important, right? She's like, she thought, I'm totally paraphrasing what you said, Sharon, but she thinks the solution to marketing is like trying a whole bunch of things. I think the solution to marketing is knowing what you're thinking and feeling. And that's a very coachy way to address it, but I'm going to show you why I think that's always true. Because our thoughts and our feelings create our actions, and our actions are trying all the things, right? So I'm going to show you different thoughts and feelings that you might be at. Okay. And I want you just to think about what you wrote in that chat. Okay. I want you to leave here answering some of that question. Most of you had really loaded questions, like, I want to solve all my business problems. You're not going to leave at that, but really think like, why did you put that, right? And it's going to come down to probably 3 problems that you guys are trying to solve. Okay. It doesn't matter what stage of business you're in. If you're just in the visionary stage, right? Or if you have a product that you just started and maybe it's not like selling yet, or maybe you had a really good launch, right? And then you're trying to recreate that and it's not happening, or you can't retain clients or patients or whatever it is that you're selling. Okay. Whatever you call your people. Okay. So the problems I'm going to go over are 3 things. One is, and I want you just to listen. You guys can listen to the replay and take notes, but I want you just to listen, because if you can take anything from this, is I don't want you just to consume the information. I want you to actually integrate it. So integrating is like what coaching is, right? So I'm going to be like talking a lot about our thoughts and feelings. I'm going to give you information, but I want you to spend more time thinking about your thoughts and what you're resonating with. And I want each of you to commit to one action that you're going to take from this call. Okay. One action, but we're going to understand our thoughts first. Okay. So the first problem, I'm going to go over the 3 problems so you guys understand the kind of the agenda here. Okay. And this is the reason why I didn't make a PowerPoint, because I know what we do. We go into medical student mode and we just start writing all these notes, and then we leave the call and we don't really take in exactly what we needed. So you guys already know what you need. You guys already put it in the chat, right? You are investing your time to find out the answers, to start to answer those questions, right? Okay. So problem number 1 is, there's 3 phases to this. Okay. Like, and the question we're trying to answer is like, how do I market my stuff? Right? Or how do I become successful in marketing my business? And the problem number 1 is the question that we ask ourselves sometimes, and this shows up in a lot of ways, is what value do I have to put out in the world? Right? And when you're asking questions like that to yourself, like what's so special about me? Right? Or gosh, why don't people just see what I have? Right? Or if I just had X, Y, Z, or why is so-and-so so successful? I have exactly whatever, maybe. Like when you're questioning what your space in this world, in your industry, right? That creates a feeling of insecurity and lack of confidence, right? And if we know that thoughts create our feelings create actions, right? Every action you take from lack of confidence and insecurity is going to be shitty. Okay. So that's why I don't want you guys to take action from there. Okay. So the problem number 1 is, what value do I have to put out in the world? Or why is my product so special? Or like whatever, a version of that. The second problem we're going to be talking about is, who's going to buy it? Like, where is my audience? Right? And when you're asking yourself questions like that, who will buy it? Where's my audience? Right? That can add a lot of feelings of overwhelming, like who's going to buy this? Like, okay, now I put all this time into it, and now what? Right? Or confusion. Right? And if you start taking actions from overwhelm or confusion, your actions are going to be shitty. Okay. So you're seeing a pattern here. Okay. The third problem we're going to solve here is, how do I retain my clients? Okay. Some other questions that are like this is, how do I grow? How do I scale? Right. Or maybe you had one big launch and then you're like, now what? Like how, and you're trying to chase that feeling almost like a drug. Like you're like, oh, where's the big launch that I had? This has happened. All these things I'm saying, you guys, I've not only coached people through, and I work with businesses through that, but I have gone through it myself. Okay. So don't think I'm immune to anything I'm just saying. Okay. And if you are like, how's Hala in my head? It's because I've been there. Okay. So if you're asking yourself, like, how do I retain clients, or like, how come I'm not growing, or whatever it may be, the feelings that you're going to create for yourself are like graspy or desperate. And nobody wants a graspy, desperate salesperson, right? You guys have all seen them, right? You guys are probably thinking of someone in your head right now. Like, oh, that girl, she's always on my threads, like just dropping her link to whatever she has to sell, right? It's kind of weird, right? Like, and if you start acting like a weirdo, you're gonna like start brushing people off, right? So these are the things we're going to talk about in detail. And I'm going to ask questions at at the end of each problem that I'm going to discuss. Okay. So problem 1, what value do I have to put out in the world? Problem 2, who's going to buy it? How do I grow my audience? And 3, how do I keep my audience? Right. So if there's anything I did not cover in those 3 that you guys really need covered, let me know. And maybe that's a subject for another talk at some point in the future, whether Sharon hosts it or I do or whatever it may be. Okay. So problem number 1, what value do I have to put out in the world? So if you guys have that problem where you're like, I don't know, like somebody's already done this, there's enough coaches in the world, or there's enough blah, 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 right? First of all, I've been there. Okay. 2 of the things I've created, Physician Moms Group. I didn't create mom groups. There was mom groups everywhere, right? Same with coaching. I'm a coach. There's so many coaches, right? And it probably feels so saturated, especially in female physician and FPE. That probably feels really saturated, right? Like every time somebody says that I'm a coach, here's a link, right? Like, so the question is how do you differentiate yourself, right? And there's a really good book. I'm going to give you guys, even though I'm really against giving book recommendations, because then you guys go into consumption mode, I am going to give you 4 book recommendations, and I'll show you at the end. So you don't have to write them down right now. But I'm going to give you like just a Cliff Notes version of what you're going to learn in 3 of the 4 of them, because one of them I didn't read. I'm going to be honest, I didn't read it, but I'm going to show it to you anyways. Okay. So one of them is Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. And that is a really good book. It teaches you how to do webinars. I don't really do webinars, but I will say I got a lot of value from the book because it teaches you how to understand the value that you have to give to the world. Okay. And this is like in his 1st or 2nd chapter or something like that. He goes over this idea of blue water and red water. And he talks about an ocean, and blue water is part of the ocean that like, there's not a lot of sharks in. Sharks are not eating a whole bunch of fish, right? There's a lot, like, it's like very abundant. Red water is a very saturated part of the ocean that has a lot of sharks, and they keep eating up all the fish. So there's all this blood everywhere. Right. And this idea that when we're putting out something into the world, we think that we have to be in the blue water, meaning we have to think of something new, something novel, something that has not been created yet, because we don't want competition. We don't want to be with all these other sharks. Okay. And for some of you, you guys have probably created something like that. And to that, amazing. Right. Most of us have not. I have not. I have not created that. So I can't speak to that experience, but some of you guys have, right? But most people are in the red water situation, right? And they keep beating themselves up because they want to be in blue water. But most people who are successful are red water. I'm going to give you some examples. Okay. I give you 2 of my own, PMG, right? All I did was create a space within mom groups, right? And there's tons of mom groups even that are for physicians now, right? So I constantly have to think, and I'm not in competition with any of them, but I have to think like, what's the differentiation of my group versus other groups? And there's people who don't like my group, and that's okay too, right? And there's people who love my group, and that's okay too, right? But I get to decide how I differentiate what happens in my group and what doesn't, right? And so that's for that. Coaching wise, right? What do I give, right? Like, what's the difference about me versus like, say, somebody else, right? And that's my work to like explain to people, right? So I speak a lot about values and legacy, right? And really helping successful women enjoy their success, because once they enjoy their success, they can actually grow more of it, right? So I talk about those things that I feel like are not really regularly talked about, right? 2 other examples. I'm going to give you 1 product and 1 book, okay? Obesity Code. How many of you guys have read that, right? The weight loss industry is billions of dollars. Everyone's coming out with a new diet all the time, right? But Obesity Code came out, and he's like, it's not a you problem, it's a hormone problem. And all of a sudden, everyone's like loving that book and loving fasting all of a sudden, right? Because it took the pressure off of them. and more hormonal responsibility. And it gave him tools to actually do, intermittent fasting. Right. And he became really big. Now I'm forgetting the guy's name. He's a physician in Canada, but I'm sorry. Fung, right? Dr. Fung. Anyways, another one is Judy Blue Jeans. If you guys spend any time on TikTok, like I do, there's like 5 million like ads for Judy Blue Jeans. But Judy Blue Jeans, like their ads are so addictive because they show a lot of them, but they talk a lot about tummy control and normalizing this like apron belly and normalizing the mom belly, right? And giving like that youth back. Right. And there's so much about their marketing that's so freaking interesting and so amazing. Right. So those are just examples of red water. Like jeans are not new. There's 5 million jeans out there. Books, they're not new. There's so many books. Diets are not new. There's so many diets. Mom groups, coaching. Okay. But these are 4 examples that are really, really successful. Okay. So I want you to think about that for you when you're thinking about like what's special about you. Right. Because if you can't figure that out, it's going to be really hard to sell something that you don't really feel like 100% behind, right? I see this a lot in the coaching industry. I'm just going to use that as an example because I get a lot of coaches that reach out to me, or people who want to be coaches, actually, rather. Like, I want to be a coach, but I don't know who would buy that. And I was like, well, have you bought coaching? And they're like, oh no, I don't need it. I was like, well, then don't sell coaching, right? Like, don't sell something that you personally wouldn't buy. Probably not a good investment for you, right? So think about like, and if you do buy coaching, right? Like, for example, say like sticking with my example, right? Like why, right? There's probably something that drew you to that person that you hired, right? Like what was it, right? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And how can you create that for somebody else, right? This is why I think marketing is all about thoughts and feelings, right? Okay. Any questions about that? I don't want to give so much because I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but any questions about that? Is anybody still thinking or still confused about what's so special about them? And if you are, this is a great thing to get coached on. Business coaching is a thing. I don't know of any successful business owner that does not have a business coach. Okay. So like, this is a great thing, whether it's through FPE, their business school, some other business coach, whatever it may be. Right. Okay. Let me look through all the comments here. Sorry. Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay. So that's the first thing. So I want you to know what you're putting out there in the world, whether it's a clinic, whether it's a book or whatever it may be, and really feel like conviction about it, right? Because then you're not going to be insecure. You're not going to lack confidence. You're going to know exactly what you're offering, right? Now, that's great. That's going to be your foundation, right? But now what? Who's going to buy it, right? And this is like, especially for physicians, out of all the people that I've ever coached, like physicians have this the hardest, I think, in some ways. Unless you're like in like a cash pay practice, most of us are not collecting money from our patients, right? Like we go in there and we say our thing and then we leave and then somebody from registration comes and deals with it, or we have somebody that deals with it, right? We're not really forward facing collecting money. And so sometimes it's really just us having an identity as a business owner, which is a little different than medicine, right? Even though I personally believe medicine's a business, and that's a whole nother situation. That's a whole nother talk. And for those of you that don't know, I have my MBA. Like I actually went to medical school thinking I was going to run a hospital. And I don't, obviously. I run something much bigger, in my opinion. But I knew this early on. Like I've always been business oriented. I, worked for Disney and just really loved like operational management and like how things work, right? And so I just want to say that like I also have the physician identity and I still work clinically and everything, that like I don't ask my patients for money. Like most of them don't have money, right? Like I'm trying to figure out how to get them things for free, right? Which is a very different thing as a business owner when I'm like charging money, right? So it's very different. So just know that this might be an identity issue. And as I said before, I talk a lot about values and identity. And just so you guys know, like the reason why that's so important is values. If you don't know a lot about values, I have like tons of information about that, but values are how we make decisions. It's our guiding principle of how we do everything, right? So if we don't know what our values are, and we're going to go over this in the next part, but then we don't know really how to make decisions. And identity is why we make decisions, right? So I see a lot of physicians go into entrepreneurship and they're like, oh, I'll just give this for free, right? Or the other way around, Yeah, Sharon, I'm not talking to you, I promise, but yeah, there's a lot of people who do this. I do this too sometimes, right? And there's a lot of people too that like, because as physicians, like, some of us are old enough to remember physician courtesy, right? So it's like, oh, I can't believe Hala or Sharon or whatever, whoever else would charge me this much. Like, we're physicians. Isn't this about women supporting women? Right? Like, you hear that a lot, right? And it's like, yeah, but this is business, right? Business takes money to run, right? And if you guys want to know how much you should be charging and all that stuff, like we could go into a whole like other topic on that, like another call. But obviously charge whatever is comfortable for you. But there's actually like, different numbers and calculations that we could do. But anyhow, that's not important. What I want to say is that that identity is why we make the decisions we make. So you can imagine if you have a physician identity, which I do, right? There's many intersections to identity, right? It could be easy to be like, oh, I'm going to give this person a discount. I feel bad, right? Or I'm going to do this for free because I should, right? I'm not saying don't do things for free. I'm not saying don't give discounts, but just make sure you love your reasons why, right? And identity is a lot of why we do things. So if we know values are how we do things, we know identity is why we do things, it's really important to do that work, right? I would say more important to do that work before you even start marketing, okay? Because what happens is when you start asking yourselves questions like, who will buy this? Like, where's my audience, right? What do? We go into spending money, right? And I think the post I was replying to that made me reach out to Sharon was about ads or something like that. Okay. And this is what I want to talk about. This like the meat of like my talk here is the difference between warm leads and cold leads. Now, warm leads, just so what you guys know what that is. So warm leads are people who already know you. Cold leads are people who don't know you. Okay. And there's certain products that do really well with cold leads, and there's certain products that don't do well historically with cold leads. Okay. And I would say that if it's something where they're working with you personally, right? Like, who's going to hire me as a coach who's never seen any of my work, right? It doesn't matter how much I'm charging. Like, if they don't know me and I'm asking them to divulge their thoughts and feelings to me, right? And they don't know me, I'm a total stranger, and they don't know my work, and they don't have this like no trust factor, they are probably not going to hire me. Pretty much, right? Most of the people who hire me, they say like, I've been following you, Hala, for 3 years. Like, it's always a 3 years thing. Like, I've been thinking about signing up with you for 3 years. Very normal, right? So that brings me to another point is like, you're not going to see immediate changes. Like, entrepreneurship is a long game. It took you 12 years, probably, give or take, to become an attendee. You just forgot that it took that many years, right? So you can't just open up a business and then think you're going to be like wildly the same amount of success, like replacing your physician income within a year, right? For some people, that does happen, right? I used to say that happened to me because my first year as an entrepreneur, I made the same amount that I made as a doctor. But that's false. I volunteered a whole bunch of shit of time for like 8 years, like a lot of time, community building for that like no trust factor. So no, it did not happen overnight, even though I told myself like it did, right? But that's not how it worked out, right? So I just want to say it is a long game. So warm leads are people who already know you, right? And they either know you because they know your brand, they have the like no trust factor, right? Or you've built a community. And I'll talk about community in a second, because community does not mean Facebook group, you guys. Okay. Community is much larger than that. So that's warm lead. Cold leads are things like ads. Okay. Like, you could buy a Facebook ad or affiliates, right? So I don't do affiliates anymore. And that's not because I'm a bitch or that I don't want to support other people, but to me, affiliates don't work long term. And I'll tell you why. Okay. And so, but affiliates, and again, going back to my mission, I want to create more independence for everybody, especially businesses, right? So if I know it doesn't work long term and I know I'm just winning in the short term, right? That makes me feel like crap. Like, I don't want to like be that business owner that's just taking money from affiliate work, right? When I know it doesn't benefit the business long term. Okay. So I'm not trying to like burst a bubble about affiliates. You guys could choose to do affiliates. I just think that warm leads and learning how to create recurring clients is going to be the long game for you. For everybody. But anyway, okay. So cold leads or ads and affiliates. Okay. So let's talk about cold leads for a second, because I'm not completely against them. I'm not, I promise. But I think cold leads, especially ads, work when you already know how to sell what you're selling. And I will say that I still, even as someone who makes a lot of money coaching, I still don't feel comfortable running ads, because I try something different every single time and it works, right? But I still don't feel super comfortable running ads, right? And I make a lot of money coaching. And if I did run an ad, I would run an ad personally. Like, I'm coming out with a podcast in the next year or in a couple months. I would run ads to my podcast, right? I would run ads to something where I would create warm leads, right? But most people will run ads to, like, actually buying their product. And so, like, say my product is $6,000. Most people on the internet are not like, never heard of this girl, let me just go hand her $6,000, right? That's not how it's going to happen, right? And you have to think about, like, if you want to create warm leads, like, how do you want them to get to know you, right? Amy Porterfield, for those of you that don't know her, she talks a lot about, building lead generations and building email lists. And she talks a lot about, like, making like a downloadable freebie, right? And that's a good way for people to get to know you too, right? Like, you get to decide, right, how people get to know you. So you can run ads to, like, a freebie. I would say also for the freebie, make sure it's something that you would want to pay $100 for yourself, like, because it's value, right? Like, going back to problem number one is, like, what value do you add? I'm in the business of trying to give away everything for free. Like, I would love to give everything away for free, because here's the thing. I know consumption for me doesn't sell long-term. It's the implementation that sells, right? Very different, right? So I can give you a checklist or something like that, but for you to actually do the checklist, that's implementation. That's working with me to do that, right? So if you have a product, especially a low, like a low priced product, that's a really good thing for an ad, right? Because people might have, like, the thought, like, oh, it's only $20, I'll buy it, right? So you definitely could do that, or you could do a mixture, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm going to sell a course for $20, but then asking them to actually do the course. Like, you have to think about, like, their experience, think about their thoughts and feelings. What's the likelihood that they're going to actually do, like, the course that you're doing, right? Like, if that's going to be your intermediate or your next step in your funnel, right, to buy a bigger product, right? So I think with cold leads, I think with ads and affiliates, make sure that you really, really know how to sell what you're selling on your own without the ad, or else I think you're just throwing away money. And if you have money to throw away, that's awesome. I would say hire Sharon or hire me or hire somebody. Like, if you really have that much money that you want to throw away, right? Like, it's not throw away. That's a really big investment. But if you have money to spend it where you're going to get a return on your investment, right? But giving it to Facebook and hoping that Facebook will solve your problem is really not, it's a little short-sighted. And then affiliates, I want you to think about, I spent a lot of time talking about warm versus cold leads, right? I'm going to give you an example of something. Okay. I'm not going to give any details that would give away what company this is, if you guys know the company, but I did an affiliate deal. This is when I used to do affiliate deals. I did an affiliate deal with a company. I'm going to make up what the company did. Say they sold phones. Okay. Cell phones. Okay. Pretend. And I did that like a couple of years ago. I don't do affiliates anymore, but all it would take for me to take away business from that person is me just going with a different cell phone company. Saying, oh, I'm not using Apple anymore, I'm using Android, right? Why would you give somebody else so much power over your marketing and your business? All I have to do is say, I don't prefer the iPhone anymore, I prefer Android, right? The other thing too is you have to remember the people I'm, like, say in PMG, for example, those are my warm leads, right? And if I'm positioned as the expert there, right? So there's still companies right? Whether they were banks or real estate investing people or whatever it may be, right? People still ask me, hey, Hala, what would you do for this loan? I don't know. Like, I'm not a loan person. I'm a community building person, right? But I'm the one that's in the position of the expert, not the company, right? So the affiliate puts you as really dependent on that person, right? To grow your company. And I would say, unless you have a lot of ways of creating clients, I would not do this personally. I would learn how to sell it on your own. And I will say that most of the affiliates, and I'll tell you why I don't think this works long term, is that every single one of the people that I've done affiliates with, this is how it goes. I will do an affiliate with them. I've made a lot of money. Okay. 6 figures sometimes on one affiliate deal. Okay. They'll come back 3 months later and be like, okay, you ready for our next launch? And I was like, wait, what happened to all the people I just sent you? Like, are they not buying again? Do they not have referrals to other people? And they'll be like, oh no, like we haven't made any sales. Right. So they're completely dependent on me. Right. And my group is not made for me to just sell them a whole bunch of shit. Right. Like that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want my legacy in PMG to be. Right. So for me, like I was like, oh, like, why are you so dependent on me? Right. And then it made me feel, and then what would happen is we'd be in the middle of a launch. I would send out, hey, you could do this with this promo code. Right. And I would see the desperation, right? Remember what I said, when you start thinking, how do I retain my clients? You start getting graspy and desperate, right? These companies would get graspy and desperate and be like, Hala, can you post again? We haven't gotten any sales. Right. And I'm like, why? This is not a job I signed up for. Like, I don't want to be your salesperson. Right. But that just puts you in lack of a power play. Right. And so why would you as a CEO put yourself so dependent on somebody else? Right. And it does not work long term. I still get the same people. I have a Rolodex of hundreds. Maybe that's about 400 people, 400 companies, always asking me, hey, Hala, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? We have this coming down. Let me know when you're ready for affiliates again. Right. And all that means to me is that they don't have an audience of their own. So this is why I think this is really important, is understanding what the difference is between warm and cold leads. Now, if you're just trying to make a quick buck, do it. Do whatever. If you're an influencer yourself and you want to do it, that's fine. Obviously, influencer work is all about working with these companies that don't have an audience, right? Or you could be the company that grows your own audience. And so that's what I do now with companies, right? I'm like, instead of you using me for what you think my greatest asset is, which is PMG, that's not my greatest asset at all. My greatest asset is how I made it. Because I've made many communities. I've made PMG, I've made, other communities. I've helped other people make communities, right, that are larger than PMG. My asset is my brain. They think my asset is the X number of people in my community, right? And so that's what I want you guys to like have, that energy of knowing that you can create your own community, right? So what is a community really, right? I said it's not just a Facebook group. That could be your email list. That could be in your own personal life. I just taped a podcast with a business coach I've been working with, and I'll give the podcast to Sharon if you guys want to listen to that. But I talk a lot about that. I talk a lot about what community is and like really how to like engage with community and knowing the rules of the game. The podcast is kind of long, so sorry, but well, not sorry, but I'm not going to fit all of that into this call and into this talk. But I think it's really important to think about like your audience and also like when you're starting to sell, like just because your friends and family won't buy from you doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful. And just because your friends and family will buy from you does not mean that you'll be successful. So you're going to have to get a little bit further out there. Identify yourself as your business owner. Start to sell with other people, right? And start to like be ready to fail, like what Sharon said, right? There's going to be lots of people who say no. There's more people that say no to me than say yes. And that's just normal. Okay. And the other thing I want to say is whether you're going to be doing ads or affiliates or building your community, and I hope I didn't like really talk down on cold leads. I'm not a cold lead person. So just want to like preface that. Obviously you guys could tell, but learning about who your ideal client is and who your best client is. Okay. I'm going to give you an example of what the difference of that is. Okay. Your ideal client is who would likely buy whatever you're selling. Okay. So a lot of people will say like I'll give you an example for me. I'll just give you an example. Like for my coaching, my ideal client is a woman who probably has 1 or 2 degrees of like educational degrees that makes 6 or 7 figures. Okay. That's who my ideal client is. My best client is someone who meets that criteria and already believes in coaching. I don't spend any time now trying to convince people of coaching. I used to early on. If you go back to some of my old like stuff, like what's the difference between coaching and psychiatry and therapy? Like honestly, I don't have the energy for that. My best clients already know. They already know that coaching is what every CEO has that attributes their success to, right? They already know all that stuff, right? They already know that coaching works. They already have the like, no trust factor with me. They already know me. They already know if they like me or they hate me. And that's okay. They already know that sometimes my analogies don't make sense. And sometimes I use a lot, right? And that's okay, right? Like they already know, love, and respect me. And I know and love and respect them, right? And the third thing is they're willing to do the work, right? They probably have already done some work on themselves and I'm just their next step, right? That's who my best client is. And that's who I speak to in every single copy that I write, whether it's an ad, a social media post, it doesn't really, an ad through my email, right? My email list. I speak to them. I don't spend any time speaking to people who are not my best clients. That's the other thing too, is like a lot of people wonder like, oh, Hala, why don't you advertise your coaching in PMG? Not everybody in there is my best client. And PMG has its purpose. Will I ever not mention my coaching? No. I mean, sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. I don't know. But I don't sit there and make PMG all my coaching list, right? Because that's not exactly what it is. And my coaching list is multi-specialty, right? Like it's not, I mean, it's diverse, right? It's not just doctors. I have doctors, lawyers, pharmacists. I have a lot of people on there, right? So I'm just giving those examples to you, right? Is identify who your ideal client and your best client is. Because some people will come to me like for affiliate work or whatever and be like, all of the people in PMG are my best clients. I'm like, no, they're not. I promise you, they can't be, right? So know who you're speaking to, because if you're speaking to everybody, you're speaking to nobody, right? That's like one of the famous lines, right? And know that if your copy causes controversy, it is freaking good copy. Okay? If you play it too safe, there's nothing that sticks out about it, right? Be bold, right? Be bold. That was something that was really hard for me. Okay? So that's problem number 2. Who will buy it? Where is my audience, right? We talked about warm leads and cold leads, the difference between ideal clients and best clients and who to talk to. And when you know this, when you can answer this, you have less overwhelm and less confusion. And we know that when you have less overwhelm and less confusion, you will spend less money trying to outsource your expertise to consultants, to affiliates, to influencers. And you will spend more time building your own audience that you can depend on forever. Okay? And this is not like an either or. This is an and. You're going to do all these things. You're probably going to run ads. You're probably going to use affiliates. You're probably going to do all these things. I just don't want you guys to put all your eggs in one basket and then blame people for the lack of your success. I see this all the time. Hala won't work with me, or Anisha won't work with me, or Sharon won't let me post. Right? I'm like, girl, the internet is big. Like, go do whatever you got to do. Right? Do what you got to do. Right? But the world is bigger than any of us put together. Okay. Any questions? Are there any? Oh, so somebody asks, are there any ways to make an ideal client a best client? That's the warm leads, right? So for example, if you guys want to see a real life experiment on this, okay, I just posted yesterday, true thing. I got this notification every time somebody downloads one of my lead magnet, which is values, like how to identify your values, which I think is like so important, right? Because how the hell are you making decisions if you don't even know what your values are, right? We make decisions all the time, but if you don't know what your values are, it makes it harder to like make really strong decisions when decisions count. right? And then we start making the same safe decisions over and over and over again. And then we don't actually get very far, right? I got in this thing. Yeah.
Could you give us the address? I didn't mention that in the beginning.
What address?
For your values workbook.
Oh,
halasabry.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but
Yes.
yeah, that's what it is. But no, I just want to give you guys an example though, because you can go look at my Facebook right now and you can see it. Yeah, but that's my halasabry.com is my website. But what I want to say is this. I think that that's the most important step for the like, no, trust factor, right? What did I say? My ideal client is somebody who is 6-7 figure women, right? My best client is somebody who already believes in coaching, knows, likes, and trusts me, right? And is willing to do the work, right? Look at this, and you can see it all in that one post, right? That one post, I identify, right? I was at the grocery store and I got this thing and it said, download number 1,000. I was like, 1,000, that's so crazy, right? And so I screenshot it. I'm like, I have to do something with this. Even if I like print it out and I put it on my little desk, right? Got to do something to celebrate. 1,000 people downloaded this workbook. That's amazing, right? And then I thought about it. I was like, let me tell people about it. Like, I don't really talk about my stuff all the time, right? Like it's for someone who talks about advertising all the time, right? I don't sit there and advertise all the time. So I was like, oh, let me post it. So I posted it and you can follow exactly what I'm saying. So you guys can see it in real life, right? I call out who it's for, 6 and 7 figure women. I call out what it is. And I basically dare people to do the work because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking my ideal clients and turning them into my best clients. And what did I say? How many years does it take for this cycle for me? 3 years. Every time I post, I'm thinking I'm creating my success in 3 years. Long game, right? I don't sit there and check, oh, how many people like this post? Oh, people don't like the post. How many comments? Likes, comments, they do not pay you, okay? Consistently building warm leads is what's going to pay you down the line, okay? And this will keep you away from overwhelming confusion. And overwhelming confusion keeps you away from overconsumption, or staying away from overwhelming confusion keeps you away from overconsumption and outsourcing from overwhelm. I actually have a course I'm creating on how to outsource, not from overwhelm, but from a place of control, right? Because we spend a lot of money that way, whether it's, hiring nannies or hiring whatever, or hiring an ads person, okay? I never like to outsource from a place of overwhelm, right? And I don't want you guys doing anything from a place of overwhelm or confusion. Okay, any questions on that? If not, I'm going to go into the third thing, and I think I'm exactly on time with where I need to be on how do I retain my clients once I get them. Okay. Somebody asked what my podcast name. I don't have a podcast name yet, actually. You guys, maybe you guys can just decide it, but I don't know if there's a different podcast that somebody else is mentioning. So I apologize if I don't. I'm looking back up. Sorry, I'm not following the chat.
The one that you mentioned that you did an hour long or so.
Oh, that one. Yeah. It's I'll send it to Sharon.
And I'll do a follow-up email, guys, with a replay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you guys can listen to, sorry, I forgot I even mentioned that. I do so many podcasts, you guys. So yes, I will send it to you. And eventually I will have my own podcast, but I don't have a name for it yet. Anyways, okay. So how do I retain my clients? Okay. That's problem number 3. So again, problem number 1 was what's the value that I have to put out in the world? Problem number 2 is who will buy it? Where's my audience at? Problem 3 is how do I retain my clients, right? And the reason why that's important is I mentioned when you don't know how to retain your clients, like if you don't have recurrent clients, you do not have a business. I just want to put that out there. If you're only having one-time buyers, like then you just have a product. If you have recurrent clients, then you have an actual business. Okay. And another reason why I don't like doing affiliate work, because if those people are not going to be recurrent business for those businesses, then what service am I doing for them? Just creating leads for them. And if it is going to recur business for them, why the hell would I not want equity in their company? Why would I help grow somebody's company and not own part of it? Right? I say that I talk about this a lot, and there's a couple of my clients here in this room too. So this is not a surprise to them. I always talk about owning your success, growing it, right? Creating more equity for yourself. And then that allows you to be more abundant to give it all away, right? I am here today, not paid, not selling you a thing, out of pure abundance, right? because I've owned my success and I've grown it to a point where I can give it all away, right? So this is what I want to share with you guys. So how do I retain my clients, right? Because if you don't retain your clients, you don't have a business and you become graspy and desperate, okay? And what happens when you're gaspy and desperate is you start to push the gas pedal on things that have worked before. Like, oh, I made this ad worked. I'm going to go put another couple $1,000s into it, right? Or I'm going to have sales. I'm going to start to discount my stuff, which all that does is decrease your value of your stuff that you were selling, right? Let me do a 50% off discount, right? If it's coming from a place of graspiness, okay? And so I don't want you guys to do that. So if you've already have a business and you say you've had a good launch or you've been in business a while, you're like, gosh, I've had clients. Now what, right? I will say that pushing the gas pedal, not on cold leads, but pushing the gas pedal also on organic marketing or building community, I think is really, really, really important. Okay. And the way that I advise companies, because most of my companies are in that stage, right? They've already made $1 million of revenue or more, right? And I'm helping them keep their clients and grow at the same time. And what I do is I go to their values, right? I talked about values and I talked about identity. Everything I'm saying here is all repetitive because this is exactly what I do. It's a formula that just works. And I keep doing it over and over and over again, right? And so I have to ask, what are the values of the company? And sometimes the company are like, I don't know, right? Or they name values. I'm like, well, how are you exercising X, Y, Z? And they don't know, right? And the reason why that's really important is I believe consistency with your values creates safety for your customers. And this is another reason why I stopped doing affiliate work, right? If I know what I want to sell as an independence, I want successful women to be able to make all this money, not from hustle or overwhelm, because that's what got us here. We know if we like hustled, right? We would get to this place, right? And sometimes we think hustling is good because it's rewarded us, right? But hustle is not going to maintain your success. So what I do in my coaching program is actively deprogram people from how they got to the success to how they're going to actually maintain their success, right? So, and that's all based off of values and identifying their values, right? And identifying my values and identifying that I want independence for them. I want independence for me. I want equity for them. I want equity for me, right? So I explain that to the companies I'm working with. What are your values, right? And make every decision from that place, right? I'll give you an example. I work with Fabletics, right? Their value or their mission statement is to help every body at every size, right? And some of the ways that you could see them in every single detail of what they do. I'll give you another example in a second, okay? Is if you ever go on their website, right? And you click on a product, we're used to seeing extra small, medium, okay? We're used to seeing that. They start from a 6X. So it goes 6X, 5X, 4X, right? Why do they do that, right? It's to like remind you that we're here for everybody at every size. We're not normalizing the norm that extra small is what comes first, right? And so every decision that they make is based off of that mission. And I've been in meetings with them, right? When I have an idea, I have to present it from a place of values. It expresses their values, right? That's how we're going to make decisions. Okay. I lied. There's another book I'm going to tell you guys about in a second. Okay. But I do not want you guys going into consumption mode and just read all these books. Okay. Please do not do that. Okay. At all. But you guys know I worked for Disney. I worked for Disney for 8 years. Okay. And this is exactly where I learned the value system. I worked there since I was 17 to 23 or 16 and a half, whatever, just up to 23. And who's counting? Anyways, and their value system is called the 5 keys. It was 4 keys when I worked there, and now they added a 5th. Okay. It's safety, courtesy, show, efficiency, and inclusivity. Okay. I still know that because it was ingrained in me. It's ingrained in every cast member. If you go to any cast member at Disney and go, what are the 5 keys? They will say it, and they'll say it in that order. Okay. Why is that important? It's important for everybody to know what the values of a company is, right? And why in that order? That order is the order that they do things in, because they know that if they follow the hierarchy of their values, it will equal more money. Okay. And so, for example, I'll give you an example. If we want to move a trash can from one side to the other side, and this happened one time, I was working Pirates of the Caribbean, and we had to move a trash can. We wanted to move a trash can. We couldn't move the trash can because we're like, is it safe? I don't know. People might bump into that. Well, maybe we could put a rope around it, right? Or are people going to jump in? You know, what's going to happen, right? And then if we do pass the safety measure, is it courteous? Are people going to have to go out of their way to the trash can? Yeah, like there's not another trash can. There has to be a trash can every X number of feet. That kind of violates that rule, right? Is it efficient, right? Notice how efficiency comes last, like towards last, right? It's not the first thing, right? Or I missed show. So it's like, is a trash can still in theme with the other side of the street, right? Like, because there's Adventureland and Frontierland, and those are really close together. So if I'm putting this trash can that's themed this way somewhere else, right? Now, the average person going to Disneyland does not know any of this is happening. But that's the level of detail in every decision. That is the level of detail of everything I do. Every single decision I make is based off of that. And that is what I teach. I teach the companies, I teach the people I coach. It's exactly what I do. Sometimes when people are like so confused, I don't know what to do, Hala. What are your values? What would your values tell you to do? Right? So I told you I'd give you guys books. Okay. So I know I gave you guys lots of information, but I hope that you were able to answer some questions that you guys asked yourself. I hope that hour allowed you to give yourself a head start on what you're going to do next. I want you guys to all commit to an action or a thought that you're going to think leaving this call. And I want you guys to leave that in the chat as I go over what we did today. We went over problem number 1. What value do I have to put out into this world? We identified how to answer that question. Problem number 2, who is going to buy it? Where's my audience? We identified that. Problem number 3, how do I retain my clients once I have them? Right? We answered that a little bit. Okay. And cliff notes for people who have not been paying attention. It's all about our thoughts and feelings, values, and identity. Okay. That's what it comes down to. I'm going to give you a couple books. Okay. And Sharon, you could send this out. There's 5 books. I only have 4 on my desk right now because the 5th one I just thought of when I was talking about this. This is The Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Okay. This is the one that taught me the difference between blue water and red water. Okay. He also goes over running a webinar if you guys want to learn how to do that. It's like a foolproof system on that. Okay. Even if you don't run webinars, I think listen to it. Or not listen. I guess it's on audiobook too. Read it because it teaches you the selling process. Okay. So this is it. Okay. He has a second book. I have not read this one, you guys, but I think it's probably really good. So I'm just going to put it out there. It's called Traffic Secrets. Okay. And this is probably about lead generation. Let's see. Fulfilling your websites and funnels with your dream customers. Yep. Everything I just said, right? Pretty sure. I am probably really sure that there's nothing that's going to be in this book that I didn't present here today or introduce today. Okay. The third book I want to say, and I absolutely love this man so much, is Alex Hormozi. He has a podcast, and I will say, don't spend time on the podcast. The podcast is very, very heavy on numbers. I like them because I work with companies as big as Alex's companies that he works with. Okay. But I will say it will overwhelm you. Do not spend time on the podcast until you just have all this extra time that you don't know what to do with. Okay. But this one's a really good one. $100 million offers. It's an audiobook too. Okay. And it looks like it's a really, really big book, really big writing. Okay. And this will teach you how to, it really identifies that problem number 1, like what's the value I have to put in the world, right? This helps you identify that and how to make an irresistible offer. Like, why would somebody leave your webinar or your freebie or whatever it is and be like, oh my God, I would be stupid not to work with Hala. I'd be stupid not to work with Sharon, right? Like, you want people to think that, like, this is so dumb. This makes so much sense that I would work with her, right? You want people to, you don't want to convince people to work with you. You want people to like have conviction that they want to work with you. I never want to work from a place of like begging people because nobody feels good. Nobody feels good after that. The last book he just came out with this. I listened to the audiobook. I
Leads.
started reading is the $100 million Leads.
Well, let me add that I've been
Yeah.
listening to the podcast. He, rather than even buying the audiobook, he puts it all on his audio, on his podcast. You'll have to go back a little bit, like a few weeks back, but Leads is there. Like it's like 1 through 11 podcast. And he talks about how he gives everything free because you guys are not my target market. My target market is people making $1 million or a few $1 million and more.
Yeah. 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 I think Alex Hormozi, I mean, like for me, like same thing. Like I work with communities. I build communities on a larger level, right? I mean, my target market, I have 2 different target markets, right? But I think just even knowing who your target market is, right? Like just listening to him, listening to people like me, listening to Sharon, understanding who is your best client, who's your ideal client, who's your target market, how are you, what is their path to getting to you, right? And when you know that and you feel secure in that, a lot of the BS that goes in on entrepreneurship, like a lot of the despair, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think I'm successful. I'm so scared to fail. Like all those things go away, right? Because ultimately you know yourself the most. All right. Okay. Anybody have any questions for me? I know I want to be cognizant of time. We're 1 minute over. You can always message me directly, or you can message Sharon. And if you guys have any questions for me, go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I am going to let you guys get back to your day. I hope you guys learned something from me.
It was wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing this. You didn't have to take the time to do this and you wanted to
Oh,
help
no,
other
I
docs.
love it.
I really appreciate it. So for us, building up female physician entrepreneurs, Hala building up PMG, these are the types of things that I want to offer in our group. And people like Hala, physicians like Hala can help us. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And if you guys
I'm happy to help in your business school with whatever it is that you guys need. I honestly, I really believe in what you're doing. I don't think that there's a lot out there that's like that. And I think that more people in this space is needed. So you guys check out Sharon's business school for sure. And if there's anything else that I can answer that's outside of that, let me know.
So website is Hala Sabry, SABRY.com.
Yep.
You can take a look. She has a workbook on values that you can download. Thank you, Hala.
And Sharon, when is your next opening for the business school? So everybody knows.
Yeah, we're lunching right now. We actually meet on Thursday. Doors are open until October 31st, if you guys know anyone.
Okay, you guys, now you know. Implement, right? Like knowing all this information is great. Listening to books is great. Listening to podcasts are great. But if that actually like worked, like then you wouldn't be here. So I want to say, make sure that you're implementing, and implementing is through coaching. So pick whoever you like, know, and trust, and just go, move forward, right? It's so much more uncomfortable. It's so much more energy to not move forward. Okay. All right. I will see you guys later.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Replays will be available.
Thanks, Sharon and Hala.
Bye-bye, guys.